Good morning, I'm Chris Fox, and today we're talking about plotting. This is the second video in my How to Plot Your Novel from Scratch series, which will probably go for a few more weeks. What we're doing is walking organically through the creation of a novel. And so we're going to go into my Scrivener document in the next section. I'll show you the work that I've done over the past 7 days. It didn't take me too terribly long to do. There's still a lot of work to be done. You can see that this is a slow process. It doesn't take a lot of upfront time investment. I'm not sitting down for hours a day taking notes. But at the same time, I'm also not able to crank this out in 2 or 3 days. It takes me weeks of just sort of organically germinating ideas in order to come up with a good plot, which is why I call this process plot gardening. And you can see my cover up there on the screen. That book's going to be coming out in probably a month or two. I'm going to guess late February. And it really addresses the entire process that you're seeing come to life in these videos in much more in depth and with a lot more structure. Anyway, we're going to jump into the next segment of the video, and you're going to see my Scrivener document for the last week and the progress that I've made. There's still a lot of work to be done, but you can see I've got some of the big pieces now created, and I can build the rest of the setting and the rest of the characters around those pieces. Some of those pieces came from the comments that you guys left last week, so thank you very much. I'm hoping to see similar comments this week. I particularly love the idea of upgrading tropes, the idea that you could take a farm boy trope, and that's required to make the hero trope, like one of the subcomponents. Somebody suggested that methodology, and I really like that. So, your ideas are definitely helping bring this to life, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to sit down and write it, but at some point after this video series is done, we're going to write this book, and it's going to be funny. Anyway, without further ado, let us jump into the next segment of the video. Okay, so to start with, I spent 38 minutes in Scrivener over the last week. So I would guess that there was probably an hour or two of thinking, but this is not something that I'm tracking as closely. Just happened to be walking, down the street to lunch or in the shower and a thought occurs to me. But the actual time spent writing these thoughts down is 38 minutes for the week. And this is what I've got so far. So my synopsis is really bare bones. It was written before anything else, and I'm not at all happy with it. It'll change, I'm sure, many times. But you can see what I've got here so far. I've decided that we have a single city surrounded by a wasteland. There are small towns and settlements around the wasteland, and there's technology, but it's rare. I think kind of post-apocalyptic. More science fiction than fantasy is sort of the flavor that I've decided to go for. Most people survive through subsistence farming. I've decided to make our main protagonist a moisture farmer because, it's a common riff off of Star Wars. Think Luke being a moisture farmer. I figured I could milk that trope, and it would be funny. Anyway, the city sits at the center of the wasteland, and that city is maintained by a machine which sends out drones to repair things. And this is also where people get their implants, and we'll see that in a couple of their documents, which is where their tropes are inserted. Our protagonist wants to be a moisture farmer with the farm boy trope. He would love to become a rock star or a gladiator, but doesn't think that's possible, so he assumes he's going to become a farm boy. During his first trip to the big city, he uncovers a plot to seize control of the machine, and must foil that plot using nothing but his farm boy abilities. By the end, he gains the hero trope. So I think this is really weak, but at least it gave me a basic story synopsis to work from. And then the rest of what I was creating was notes about the world, because I believe that before you can really get into the meat of a good story, you need a good character, you need a good protagonist. And to get a good protagonist, you first got to define their world, because otherwise you have no idea what that protagonist wants. And if you don't know what your protagonist wants, then a motivationless character is boring. So you've got to understand what that motivation is and make it clear to the reader. And for me to do that, again, I've got to figure out the world first. So some of what I did, I took a look at tropes and I tried to decide, okay, what are they exactly? They could be any of the following. I had like 5 or 6 other options that were stupid and I deleted them. These are the 3 that survived: potions, gems, or pills. And I decided that what if these things were socketed? So when a new person is born, a new citizen, they have a socket implanted in their chest by the machine. And you could put a trope into this socket. And this system was originally created because they wanted to be able to give people abilities in the same way it happens in the Matrix. So think, Neo uploads Kung Fu.
I know Kung Fu.
What if you could insert a trope into somebody? You could make soldiers and heroes and scientists. And so this is what the machine was created to do. a long, long time ago, and somewhere along the way, the people guiding the machine maybe disappeared, and now things have fallen into ruin, but the trope system is still there. So that's kind of what I've got for tropes, and that gives me my basic setting. I started thinking about the protagonist, and I don't have much yet. I just have a little bit. I know that I want them to be young. I'm thinking, like 16 years old, 17 years old, teenager. And they need to go into town either because, maybe a parent is sick or dying, and they have to now go get the farm boy trope so they can take over for them. I need to concoct a need for them to go into the city. And then, of course, my protagonist will begin meeting people and working to get their tropes. And you can see up here in the corner, I've added my 8 steps for the story circle created by Dan Harmon. I've got a video on that if you guys are curious. But this is what I'm going to be plugging things into, and those tropey chapter names that we saw last week, they're going to start going here. And as I start planning those, more of this will flesh out, but at least I kind of have a vague idea of who my protagonist is going to be. I also thought of a few other characters that'll be fun to add. I'm going to have a well actually character, and I think this will probably be a girl, maybe even a love interest. And basically, she's going to start out normal enough, also wanting to be maybe a farm girl, but she's going to have the opportunity to take the well actually trope. And the well actually trope refers to kids, and we've all met kids like this who, maybe an 8-year-old who will automatically correct you whenever you say something. And they'll do it by saying, well, actually, it's like this.
Stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
And that's the trope I'm going to give her. So she's going to be the know-it-all, and I'm going to make that as funny as possible. She will be very self-aware. She'll be the one that's aware, genre-aware, that, they're kind of in a certain genre, and she'll be making fun observations about that. So this is one of the side characters I'll be creating. Don't have a name, don't have anything else for her, just an idea. At the end of the first week, that's what I know about her. I saw a guild name in World of Warcraft. I play Battlegrounds occasionally in World of Warcraft, and I happened to see one of the funniest guild names. They were called Ominous Latin Phrase, and that started triggering an idea for me. So at the end of the day, it probably won't be Ominous Latin Phrase, although it may be, we'll see. But it'll be referred to by its initials. And then it's standing for an ominous Latin phrase because this is a trope that's done to death in all forms of fantasy and to a lesser extent in science fiction, where, you'll have like Nox Arcana, Eternal Night, and all of these phrases for Illuminati-like organizations. And I want to take that trope and sort of turn it on its head and make it funny. And I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that yet. This is just an idea, but it's something that I jotted down, and we'll have to see whether or not this makes it into the final version of the book. And then finally, I know that I'm going to need to define the machine and who made this and stuff, but I haven't done it yet. I want to. It's not done because this is all being done organically. I'm not trying to force this plot out of myself. I'm creating as the time allows because I have another project I'm working on. I'm editing Spellship right now. I've got to finish that book. So this is a side project. And you can see that it is slowly developing, and I'm adding more to it. And then when we pop back into this document next week, you're going to see there's a lot more structure. You'll see a huge leap. All of a sudden, you're going to see chapters are laid out, and I've got a whole bunch more documents. It tends to gather momentum. I'll start with the first week being super slow, and then by the time I'm getting into the second or third week, I'm getting a lot more definition. I'm getting more excited about the project, and I start knowing a lot more about who these people are. And then finally, the last thing that you'll start seeing me do next week is finding artwork. I'm going to go online and start looking for various types of artwork that already exist that people have created that are going to sort of inspire me and can serve to like represent certain characters in the plot. It's a step that I've done before. You guys have seen it in the 21-Day Novels Challenge and in 12 Weeks to a Trilogy, but it really makes it real for me, seeing that kind of artwork. Anyway, I hope this information is useful. I know you guys probably have a ton of questions, as evidenced by last week. The comments were great and super helpful. So I'd encourage you guys to leave a comment if you have any thoughts on the world development so far. A lot of that is going to make it into the development of the story. The whole idea of tropes upgrading, which is something that I'm working into the plot right now, came from a comment last week. So somebody said, shouldn't the hero trope require the farm boy trope? And that is an excellent, excellent idea. What if you could upgrade tropes? And so you'll see that worked into the plot. Anyway, guys, I do need to get back to the writing. I have to get Spellship ready and off to Tammy for editing. That's going to happen probably next week. So yeah, I'm going to get back to the writing. See you guys next week.